What's up guys, are you ready for me to talk about 52 books in one video? Wait, before you leave, I'm just kidding, I'm not gonna talk about all 52 books in this video, but I am gonna cover 10 of my favorite books from this list of 52 books, and at the end of this video, I'll tell you where you can download the whole list. You might be thinking, gee, that's odd. Why are there exactly 52 books on this list, and there are 52 weeks in a... Wait a minute. Aha, yes, I've got you. That's right, I'm going to challenge you to read one book a week in this list of 52 books. And if you do, I promise you will completely transform your life in ways you can't even imagine. Are you serious, John? Yes, I'm serious. You absolutely can read one book a week. There are about 300 pages in a book, so that's like 40 or so pages a day. You can read about 40 pages in about an hour a day, no excuses. Okay, so I broke the books into 10 categories, and I'm not going to tell you what the categories are because it's a surprise. Life is better with surprises. But one of them is dystopian novels. Oh, and I've read around 700 books in the last 10 years, so these are the absolute best of the best. Every one of these books is damn good and necessary for you to read. Don't you dare skip any of them. Man, I don't know about you, but I'm a lazy f***ing asshole. Seriously, I can procrastinate all day long and literally do nothing but stare at the screen watching YouTube videos. Now luckily, I've actually learned to solve this problem and turned myself into a lean, mean, book reading, video making machine, mostly thanks to this one book, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Now, I've literally read this book over 15 times because it's so damn good. It's poetic, it's metaphorical, it's pretty damn close to the perfect book. Half self-help, half poetry. It's just damn good writing, and it should be. Steven Pressfield wrote best-selling novels like The Gates of Fire and The Legend of Bagger Vance. What is this book about? It's about resistance, as Steven Pressfield calls it, otherwise known as procrastination. Just listen to how he describes resistance. Resistance will tell you anything to keep you from doing your work.
It will perjure, fabricate, falsify, seduce, bully, cajole. Resistance is protean. It will assume any form if that's what it takes to deceive you.
Resistance is always lying, always full of shit. Resistance is infallible. Like a magnetized needle floating on the surface of oil, resistance will unfailingly point to true north, meaning that calling or action it most wants to stop us from doing. Boy, I can relate. Every time I sit down at my desk to do my work, resistance figures out the exact thing that will distract me the most and puts that thought directly into my head. The biggest thing this book did for me was to show me that I'm not alone. Everyone is a up. Everyone just can't sit down and do their work. It's not just me. Once I knew that, I knew I had a fighting chance because if some people could beat resistance, then so could I. Now I've got some other gems in this category, Getting Things Done, Deep Work, and Atomic Habits, but you can check out the full list at the end of this video. Did you know you have a horrible bad habit? Want to know what it is? It's you! You're the bad habit. You have the bad habit of being yourself. But don't worry. I can help you break it, or at least Joe Dispenza can in his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. The beginning of this book starts out a little woo-woo, alternating between quantum mechanics and manifestation. But if you can make it through the first chapters, that's where the real magic happens. You see, Dr. Joe says that your primary problem is that the feelings you have had, your past experiences and learned behavior have basically formed a rut in your mind, a rut that you can't get out of. You're living on autopilot, feeling the same feelings and doing the same things because you're addicted to those emotional states. The solution is to literally break the habit of being yourself by rewiring your brain with the new habits and emotional states you'd like to have. Now there are a bunch more excellent books in this category, like As a Man Thinketh, one of the best books of all time, The Compound Effect, and Psycho-Cybernetics, literally the first real self-help book. And I've even included one you've probably never heard of, Thinking in Bets, written by Annie Duke, a female professional poker player. One of the biggest problems that a lot of my male coaching clients have is dealing with women when they're in a relationship and really treating them like a man, trying to masculinize them. And it's a very common problem. It's one that I struggled with myself until I read The Way of the Superior Man by David Dana. Now this book really goes into what it is to be a man, especially in a relationship dealing with women. Now this book will really help you in a relationship with a woman. It'll help you to show up as a masculine man in a relationship and to understand what femininity is and how to embrace that instead of trying to change it. A lot of guys think that there's something wrong with the girl that they're dating because of the way that she acts, because she's not logical, and they try to make her logical, which actually depolarizes the relationship and makes her lose sexual attraction for you. A lot of dead marriages and sexless marriages are a result of this kind of problem. There's a bunch of other good books in this category, including The Way of Men, The Rational Male, and The Masculine Relationship, which is also another good book about being a man in a relationship. One time I was visiting Westminster Abbey in London, and there were these huge signs that said, "No photography." I was like, what the f? Why can't I take pictures? This is so stupid. So I whipped out my cell phone and started taking pictures, and some security guy came up to me and asked me to put my phone away. So I did. I put it right into my front pocket with my camera facing outwards, and then used my Apple Watch to snap photos from my pocket. I just don't like stupid rules, and I just don't feel like I should have to follow them. And you know what? It turns out I was right. Well, at least that's the argument Harry Brown makes and how I found freedom in an unfree world. This book is all about personal freedom. The basic premise of this book is that you should live your life how you see fit, disregarding societal rules and norms and the expectations people put on you. Now, I would sum it up as do whatever the you want, just don't hurt anyone else. Now, Harry lists a bunch of the common traps we fall victim to which hinder our personal freedom. For example, most people believe that they have a duty to obey the laws, as if governmentally created laws are the same thing as moral laws. Yeah, you probably shouldn't kill someone, as it's against the law and also bad, but speeding is not morally wrong. I picked this book out of the list, but the personal growth category is strong with giants like Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. See what I did there? And Man's Search for Meaning, Boundaries, and one of my personal favorites, The Courage to Be Disliked. Speaking of dislikes, if you're finding some value from this video, would you do me a quick favor and just hit the like button? It's the best way that you can support my work and keep me making better and better videos. It's time to get woo-woo. I have to admit, I used to be against all this spiritual new age bullshit. My background is that of a software engineer. So when people used to tell me about the law of attraction and I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my mind and I'm just an observer, I used to tell them where they can shove it. All right. The first time I read halfway through Think and Grow Rich, I literally tossed it in the trash can. I later fished it out, but you'll be happy to know it's not on this list. I'm still not a big fan. But now, I'm one of those crazy lunatics, except I like to think I take a much more balanced approach, not completely throwing rationality out the window. Now, there are a lot of great books in this category. The Power of Now, the Bhagavad Gita, Way of the Peaceful Warrior. But one of the books that struck me the most was The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Have you ever considered who you actually are? You have a name, you have thoughts and emotions, but are you actually any of those things? You can't be what you're feeling, because if that defines you, then who's feeling those emotions? Who's observing your thoughts? The answer is the real you, not the one you present to the world and not the thoughts inside your head. What about that constant voice in your head? Can you quiet it? What happens when you do? This book is all about developing the most powerful tool you have to transform your life: awareness. There are many good books I'd love to talk to you about in this category. Seneca's letters to Lucilius are perhaps the most profound writings you'll ever uncover, although it takes a bit to unpack them. Relentless by Tim Grover will definitely make you question if you really have what it takes. Did you know David Goggins was the main character of a book before anyone knew who he was? Living with a Seal is all about a dude who invited David Goggins to come live with him for 30 days and literally kick his ass every day.
When Goggins lived with me, his rule was we had to do something every day that sucked. And
what did he make you do?
Every day sucked. He didn't tell me that we're going to do that 5 times a day.
But the book I chose to highlight here is the one you should probably start with. This is a book that completely changed my life. I had just quit my job and finally become financially free through the passive income I was making from real estate investment. I went to Hawaii to drink Mai Tais on the beach and play video games. I thought it was going to be wonderful. I had worked hard to achieve this goal. I finally made it. There was only one problem. I was miserable. I'm talking full-blown depression. Why? It didn't make sense to me. I literally achieved the dream I had ever since I was 20 years old. It turns out the main reason I was sad was because I didn't have any challenges left to overcome. In my mind, I had made it. I listened to the audiobook of The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday when I was running on the beach, and I realized why I felt like a sack of shit. I didn't have any obstacles left to overcome. I realized that adversity isn't something to shy away from. It's actually the catalyst to growth. This book introduced me to Stoic philosophy, and specifically the writings of perhaps the wisest man who ever lived, Seneca. I realized that the ancient wisdom of the Stoics provided the most reasonable philosophy on how one should live their life. When I came back from that trip, instead of retiring and doing nothing, I set out to conquer even more obstacles, and that set me on a course to run marathons, build a new business, and to learn to conquer my fears around women. Bulldog Mindset would not exist without this book. When I was young, I thought I was pretty damn smart. I bought my first house when I was 19 years old because I didn't want to rent. I moved to Santa Monica, California, and took a job as a way overpaid software developer, and I was way ahead of everyone I knew in terms of financial success, but it turns out I didn't know shit. I really had a stupid plan. I was going to be extremely frugal and simply save as much money as I was making until I was rich. I did the math on it. All I had to do was sleep on a mattress on the floor and eat macaroni and cheese every night, and I could save $100,000 a year. By my calculations, it would just take me 10 years to be a millionaire. Holy shit, that's a long time to eat mac and cheese, and that's not even rich. That's not even retired. There had to be a better way. If I was making a shit ton of money and I couldn't get rich, how did anyone? Well, I started researching that question, and the answer slapped me right in the face. 90% of all millionaires made their money from real estate. I needed to buy real estate, but how? I browsed the aisle of Barnes & Noble until I came across a book, the book on real estate investing, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. I read the book in one sitting. It explained why real estate was the best investment. You could borrow the bank's money, have your tenant pay your mortgage, and essentially get a property for free. You just had to make the initial down payment of 10 to 20%. Now fast forward to today, and I own several $1 million of all paid off real estate and generate 15 to 20K a month in positive cash flow. Pretty smart, right? Wrong! I still didn't know what the f I was doing until I read MJ DeMarco's book, The Millionaire Fastlane. The first chapter is basically him just telling you how stupid you are. He identified what I was doing as the slow lane. He said most people aren't even in the slow lane, they're what he calls sidewalkers. But in order to get into the fast lane, you have to build a business. Luckily, I had already started down that path when I read the book, but after reading it, I doubled down on it, and last year I made over $1 million from my business income alone. Several years ago, I was driving near the beach, checking out some girls that were crossing the street. I wasn't paying as much attention as I should have, and I drove through a crosswalk while there were still some people just about to finish crossing the street. I looked in my rearview mirror and saw the familiar red and blue lights. I pulled over into the nearest parking lot, and the police officer comes up to my car and says, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" I honestly said no, because I had no idea. I didn't know it was illegal to cross through a crosswalk if people already crossed but hadn't completely stepped out of the road. He told me the infraction and waited my excuse. Instead, I said, "I had no idea, but this is no excuse. I should have known better. It is my mistake. I accept 100% responsibility." He immediately said, "Oh, now I think you're being a little hard on yourself. It's not really that big of a deal, and it's not like you hit anyone or even close to hitting anyone." I doubled down. "Yes, but I should have known better. The law is the law." He began pleading more adamantly for my case. "Yes, that's true, but I think you've learned your lesson. Just be a little more careful next time." And he was back in his car before I could even respond. He didn't even give me a warning. Now, you want to know where I learned that little trick? How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, one of the best books on communication I've ever read. So good I reread it at least once a year. In this book, a similar situation happened with Dale, only instead of a car, it was an off-leash dog in a park, but it resulted in the same outcome. I'd consider this book the seminal book on communication, but if you want to be an expert negotiator, you absolutely have to read Never Split the Difference. Let's not forget Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, and the controversial book 48 Laws of Power to round out your communication skills. This brings us to the category you probably would not have guessed I would include in a list like this: dystopian novels. Why dystopian novels, you might ask? Why not? A little doom and gloom never hurt anyone. I mean, it's actually a good question. Why out of 52 books do I feel 3 of them need to be fictional stories about a society with great suffering or injustice? The real answer is that some of these stories project eerily accurate predictions of the future, which are becoming more and more true every year. It's also a lot of fun to read these kinds of books because they're actual stories and not just an instruction manual on how to be a better human being. Well, except for John Galt's 60-page speech in Atlas Shrugged. I won't judge you if you skim that one. There are 3 fundamental dystopian novels everyone should read. Atlas Shrugged, 1984, and Fahrenheit 451. A Brave New World is a good one as well, but it didn't make the list this time. What these kinds of novels do the most effectively is to change your worldview. It's impossible to read a book like Atlas Shrugged or 1984 and not change the way you think about government and politics. Did you know the cholesterol test at your annual physical doesn't tell you enough about your actual risk of dying from a heart attack? I almost never recommend health and fitness books because most of them, well, suck. There are very few books in this category that aren't complete trash. But I recently read Peter Attia's book, Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity, and it has moved straight up to my must-read list. This book clearly defines the 4 chronic diseases of aging: heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative disease, and diabetes, and what you can do about them. The book is backed by the best unbiased research in these areas and presents practical advice on what you can do right now to delay these deadly killers. Just one piece of advice from this book: to pay attention to your ApoB lipoprotein count instead of overall cholesterol levels, even when you're young, could very well save your life. I was shocked by how much Medicine 2.0, as he calls it, has wrong, and how much there is to know about Medicine 3.0, an approach to health and wellness focused on prevention rather than treatment. I cannot overemphasize to you just how much reading has changed my life. If you literally did nothing else, but just read the 52 books I've compiled in this book list, you would drastically change your life in ways that I cannot even describe. I know it may be hard to believe, but if you take a chance and do what I'm saying, I promise you will not regret it. Look, even if you can't or don't want to read 1 book a week for the next year, at least go through the list and start reading all those books. Even getting through half of the list will make a huge impact on your life. Now, as someone who sells courses and coaching, you should believe me when I say all you need is books. The other things are great, and I pay for coaching myself, but 90% of what got me to where I am today is from what I read in books. Before I end this video, I want to tell you how to use this list. First of all, you can find the list by clicking in the link in the description below this video, or you can go to bulldogmindset.com/52 books. I recommend you read the books in the order I put them on the list. They're broken up into 10 categories, and you'll get the most out of reading if you focus on one category at a time. I personally read most of these books by listening to the audio version on Audible while I'm going for a run to maximize my time. I put a link where you can sign up below as well. It's an affiliate link, full disclosure. I know some people whine about listening to books versus reading them, and I think there are some valid points. However, it's much better to have listened to a book than not at all. And I personally get more out of listening to books because I do it when I'm running, and it allows me to be completely focused on the book without any distractions. If transforming your life is important to you, you might think it's too late or you've missed the boat. I've got good news for you, but you'll have to watch this video next to find out what it is.